the 130th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the third week of March 2013. This episode is titled Bracketology. CloudFocus Weekly is sponsored by Arkus, your cloud computing experts. I'm your host, Jason Atwood, and joining me for the co-host for 130th time, who's madly filling out his March Madness bracket, is Justin Elstein. Justin, how are you doing today?
Awesome. It's like one of my favorite times of the year.
Why?
My mood ebbs and flows with sports and times of years, and this is one of the greatest. When it gets to the middle of March and you get the NCAA March Madness tournament going on, and then that leaks right into opening day for baseball, and that leaks right into the NBA playoffs. It's a very nice 2 to 3 month stretch we got going on here. You get the Masters sprinkled in there for the golf fans. Some good stuff going on.
Yeah, none of that matters at all.
We can talk sports or cloud computing.
It's 35 days until the NFL draft. That's all I care about.
You got that going on too.
Yeah.
You got tons of stuff.
All right. Speaking of a ton of stuff, we have an agenda today. We have the blog post called Tune Up Your Salesforce
I wrote that one.
With every release. We have some Google news, more Google offings, and downages. I don't know if that's where I just made it up.
All right.
And then we have a Microsoft purchase, little competitor action going on. And then we'll make our CloudFocus app pick of the week, and we'll move on with life. So why don't we start off with the blog post, your blog post.
This was my blog post. It was about tuning up your Salesforce org. So every release, when Salesforce does their 3 times a year release, there are items that come in those release notes that any good administrator should know to look at and take heed of, and go into their Salesforce org or maybe their sandbox when it gets upgraded prior to the actual release being live, and make sure that things actually work. There are
So you're saying I need to make sure things work.
Yeah, I mean, Salesforce brags and boasts about upgrading everybody 3 times a year, 5-minute downtime, no breaking of anything. But the reality is there are things that could potentially break. And not necessarily break, but just break models, or, security comes to mind, or limits that get changed that you need to be aware of.
It's not really breaking. That's more of...
It's not breaking, but it could break process more than breaking technology.
I think I've seen two things in 2 different releases, one 5 years ago and one recently, that things actually broke in a new release. Broke.
Well, we have something that we are dealing with now that is broken, and that came as part of a release, and it's still broken.
Oh, that's 3 things then. I mean, I think the thing is, it's not usually big things; it's small things, things that are so edge case. Like the one that we're dealing with today is, what is it? Accepting an invite.
Well, so at Arkus, we drink our own champagne.
Yes.
And
eat our own dog food.
And we use the Salesforce calendar as our gold calendar. And it syncs to our Google calendars. And we've written about that and talked about it many times over. And one of the things that we use the Salesforce calendar to do is, like most calendar applications, we send out invitations to our clients or prospects or internal meetings, whomever. We send out the calendar invite using the Salesforce calendar. And the Salesforce calendar, while it handles this, it's not necessarily what it was built for. It doesn't do some of the things that a Google Calendar invite does, or an
it basically
Outlook
doesn't
calendar
attach.
invite.
It basically sends you a link
To accept, and then allows you from that screen to download the ICS and have that go into your iCal or your Google Calendar or your Outlook or whatever calendar you're using. So it doesn't just throw it on your calendar.
Right.
And very recently, there's a little bug with the acceptance of an invitation. It's a very, very edge case. There's a known issue out there. You can search for it. I don't need
basically,
to go
if you're logged into a Salesforce org and you click on the link in the same browser window, it will then give you an error and say the meeting is not even available.
Right, because it thinks you're trying to click on a meeting in the org that you're logged
and
into.
it came about because of their last release, and I think some of the authentication changes that are now auto-authenticating you from different orgs.
Yeah, I feel like that's what did it.
Right. Well,
which also doesn't work that well. I'm surprised by how not well that
I think we are edge case because we're in so many orgs. Most people are in one org, and so if they single sign into who cares? We're in so many orgs that like I'll pop to one place to another, and all of a sudden I'll be signed into ID Exchange, but I'll be signed in under the user that I was just doing configuration for. It's weird.
It takes your last session,
right?
Whatever your last session in that browser is. But anyway, back to the blog post. If you feel like reading up on some things that you should do and be on the lookout for when Salesforce does a release, there's a few of them listed on this blog post. I gave you 3, and there's many more, but these 3 I think are important.
I want to throw in one that you didn't mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which I think is something important.
You should put it in the comments. Why don't you throw it in discuss?
Maybe I won't. But the one thing I think people don't do enough, and you should do at least 3 times a year with the 3 releases, is test deliverability of your emails. So there's a feature in Salesforce, just go into admin, it's called test deliverability. What it does is it sends one email from each of the Salesforce email servers. I think there's 42 of them now, and basically sends it to whatever email address you want to see that that emails that leave Salesforce are getting to you. And so it's a nice way. It takes 2 seconds, other than getting 42 or 43 emails. It's just a nice way of sort of sanity check to make sure that there's no spam filter on your side or their side or somewhere out in the interwebs that is hitting your emails. So I would always do that quarterly, just, and again, it's a nice time when there's a new release to kind of think through the things that you should do, once in a while. And so 3 times a year, it's a good time to go through and test these things. But you can read the rest on blog.arkusinc.com. Next up, Google Reader news.
Google Goner.
No more. This one has been a splash. This came out last week.
Yep.
And
I could have predicted this one because I told you I was a huge Google Reader user.
You could have predicted it, but didn't.
Well, I wasn't just going to be like, yeah, Google's going to shut down Reader.
You never would have predicted that.
I absolutely. We've been talking on this blog post. I got caught in the Jason trap.
130 episodes
podcast about how I used to be a very big Google Reader user when it came out, and for years to follow. And over the last year or 2, I have not even clicked on Reader. And for such a heavy user like I was, to completely abandon it, I imagine that there's lots and lots and lots of people just like me who've done the same thing. And just, you know what? I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. For me, it's kind of the same thing. Like if I like something on Facebook, I'm gonna get all their posts. Like, why should I follow the Mashable feed if I like the Mashable page on Facebook and it's just getting posted there all the time?
I can tell you why. I mean,
there are many reasons why, but I find that it doesn't matter to me. Like I haven't missed Google Reader at all.
I miss it because it's just like chat. It's like Chatter. The difference between Chatter and email. I'll make it a great analogy here. So Chatter and email. Why do I have to have email if I got Chatter? Things get posted in Chatter and I can see them in my stream. It's the same thing. What's nice about Google Reader and RSS readers is it has a read state. So if I go away for 16 months or 10 days and I want to go catch up on Touch Arcade, which is a great iOS blog, if I follow them on Facebook, if I follow them on Twitter, they'll miss them. They'll go somewhere else. They'll just, they don't go anywhere. If I go to the Reader, there's still 20 of them sitting there, and I can quickly scroll through all of them and catch up because there's a read unread state. As far as I know, there's no way in Twitter to say, just show me these tweets from this person and whether I've seen them or not before. And same thing with Facebook. It's not like I can't go to their timeline and say, show me the stuff I haven't seen that this person has posted since the last time I was here.
Right.
You do that, and fine, you can probably get away with a lot of this. So yeah, they're killing off Google News.
Or Google Reader.
Sorry, Google Reader.
Not Google News.
Yeah, you wrote Google Reader News, right? They're killing off Google Reader because of, basically for the same reason they kill off everything.
They gave two simple reasons. Usage has declined.
Yep.
And they are pouring energy into fewer products, which is something that I think is a good thing for Google, because Google is totally scatterbrained. They're all over the map when it comes to product development. They're never in sync. I feel like this is a very good step back, and this is a big ticket one, right? But there was always like a big splash, like, oh, Google killed off what was it, like Google Health or whatever that was, or Google killed off this, or Google killed off that, and at the end of the day, none of it has really impacted life as it is, right? Life goes on without this Google product. This is one that a lot of people used. It was a very early, Web 2.0, RSS feeds. Oh, Google Reader. This is how to keep track of all this content. It was a very big deal, big product. A lot of people jumped on it very early, and it maintained that. But I think, like me, a lot of people have stopped using it, and they know better than anyone that their usage has declined.
Yeah.
And I think that they've learned that more focused energy on very specific, fewer products with better, tighter integration, better consistency across the product of user interface, single sign-on with the Google account. All those things is more important than having just a ton of products.
I just think the problem is it's sort of, to me, it's the death of RSS.
Could
and I know
be.
RSS has a lot of other features to it, and it's actually used behind the scenes more than we know, because a lot of these services, these aggregation services that do things like Zeit and all that, come from RSS.
And this podcast being published.
And this podcast being published is an RSS feed. So, I mean, there's this back-end thing that RSS, but I feel like the front end of RSS, the user ability of RSS, I think is now sort of dead. And, again, I'm not bummed about it. But again, so we talk about, I'm going to make the counter argument. Google kills off Google Reader, right? But then goes and does stuff that, how much value is there? So go to Google now. Go to Google.
All right, I'm always in Google.
Okay.
I'm on Google.
In search and type in NCAA bracket.
Oh.
Seen this?
Well, I'm going to type it in right now.
Hit search.
Search. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. So there was a good article this morning that talked about this.
I love this.
Yeah, but think about this.
Yeah.
This is not search anymore. This is what we call one-boxing.
Oh, we call it one-boxing.
Yes, we call it one-boxing. But this is like, they're willing to do this, this actually takes away from other people. This actually steals traffic from, and I think actually the way it's been done is actually interesting but pretty poor. Like, look at where you can't even see any of the. If you really wanted to get to the NCAA March Madness website, I mean, it's way down now because they've sort of taken over the whole thing. So again, they spend time on this, but a product that millions of people use, I don't know. I just feel like Google sometimes they use the excuse of we don't want to put too much effort into things, but we're going to build this big bracket technology that shows up the full bracket round of 64 inside your Google search. Yeah, that everybody wants that. Certainly. So I think you don't want to put too much time into other things, but that everybody needs, as opposed to the million other websites that do this. Trillion other websites. So you need to do it too? You need to become a portal? I think it's a little bit against what Google's supposed to be doing, which is search.
I feel like this is right in line with organizing information and displaying it in a useful way.
Yeah, it's becoming a portal, though. And Google's always said, I'm not going to become a portal.
It's not a portal. You can't click from somewhere to get to this. You type in a box, and it shows you this visualization. It's not really a portal because
a portal is a place you don't leave for information. You sit in the place. You don't go anywhere else. Google is always meant to be search for a thing and then go to wherever it is.
Well, Google Reader can, if you want to say, well, they don't want to be a portal. Well, Google Reader is still sitting within the Google family and is portal-like if that's your definition.
Aggregating data. Yep, and allowing you to read it.
Right, but it's the same. Same premise.
But bringing me other sources of data, this is sort of making Google the end point for this. Again, I think it's a light example. I do more broad of it as they say they don't want to put too much effort into certain things. This to me seems like an edge case of like, really, this needed to happen. There's a 500 million websites that do this, right? So anyway, let's move on. I like
how you brought the brackets into it though, because that's cool.
Yeah, that was good, eh?
That was good.
So the other thing was that Google had
go Canadian on me.
I think might have,
You may have.
had a big outage. And last week we talked a lot about the state of support in our podcast, which should be the number one podcast we ever did. Hopefully it will be.
Got a lot of good feedback on that one.
We did?
I did.
From who?
Some people.
Your cat?
Maybe. Some Twitter folks liked it.
Oh, okay. So one of the things I think that was interesting, we talked about a lot about trust. So the other day, Google Drive was down.
Yes.
Right? And I thought, okay, now it's time to get it. Let's see the trust. I go to Google. I search for Google app
like
status.
An app dashboard or something.
Boom, right there, little orange. Click on the orange, and there was the little updates. It's been down. It's being restored. Whatever. I thought, okay, you did it right. Like,
it was weird because the interface to get to Drive was down on the web, but you could still get to individual docs that were in the Drive if you had them
linked,
bookmarked, or linked to something, or
in
something
your history,
or in your history,
great, by the
something,
way.
Right? You could totally get two things in the Drive. Just the front end of it was wonky,
was broken.
Yeah, it just wasn't loading.
Wasn't loading at all. And they just released for Drive fanatics. They just released the new APIs for Drive, which allows application developers to use the APIs to show, I guess, real-time editing.
Yeah, I guess this would be like you could develop maybe a plugin in Word that would have a Word doc that was stored in Drive and real-time edit.
I think
inside
it's more
the Word
like
doc?
I could build an iOS app that read Google Docs and edit them real time and show that in a Google
not
app.
Even necessarily Google Docs. It could be a Word doc sitting in Drive.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe?
No, it's a Google Doc.
Gotta be a doc?
Yeah. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. We'll see what people do with it. I tried to think like could we do something in Salesforce, like you're editing something in Salesforce.
Couldn't even think of what.
It's real time editing something behind it. I don't know. Whatever. And then last not least,
you know what? While we're on the Google thing, I'll just before we get to the last not least.
Yes.
Or least.
It's the Google Nexus.
No, not at all. Have you noticed that Chrome and Google Drive together are like the least stable marriage of all browser and applications? What is up with that? Because we use Docs and Drive like crazy.
Right. I don't even know the difference between the two anymore. I think they're the same thing.
What I mean is we're always in a Google Doc, right?
Yep.
And I cannot tell you how often the tab just dies.
It dies a lot.
A lot. Like the old Google Wave days where it'd be like, oh, Cap'n, everything's shiny, just refresh me.
Which,
or I'm about to explode.
By the way, Firefly reference, watch the TV show. Anyway.
Like, Google Wave's about to explode. Look out. You'd have to refresh it. But, like, why does Chrome break so much more often than any other browser with Google Docs?
That's not true. With Safari, I can crash Safari. There's one thing I can do in Safari that almost crashes it every time, which is I switch between Google accounts. From, like, if I'm on Reader, it won't matter anymore. But if I'm on Reader for one account and I switch to the other one, I mean, I've crashed Safari doing that a couple hundred times.
Oh, really?
It literally just crash.
Just doesn't like it.
Just something about it. I think
I just don't understand how. I think it's because Chrome's just releasing, and they're just breaking stuff.
I don't think it's that. I think it's that Google Docs, because of their collaborative nature, are pulling a lot. They're doing a lot in the background. They're like constantly polling the web, polling between the browser and the website, and eventually it just gets caught into a cycle, and either you don't pay attention to it, or you lose internet.
Then they all just crash.
Right.
Like every tab you have open.
That doesn't happen to me.
No, not every tab. Every doc in a tab will just die. Like Salesforce will stay, it's all good. But the docs part will just be like, oh snap, we're broken. And you just refresh it.
I think it really comes down to real time. I think that real time stuff, and maybe why Salesforce stays away from real time chatter, the real time chatter, is because doing it in the browser is just a hard presence thing to keep up on it. Again, we don't even use messages very well.
I think Salesforce should just take the Twitter and Facebook model of like just saying new stories and and just click the little thing that shows up and boom, the new ones pop. But you don't have to have them like in all the demos how they like really show up in real time. You don't have to do that. No one's asking for that. Well, we're asking, but you don't have to deliver all that. You can deliver something a little less.
All right.
Let's talk about Microsoft.
Last story, and then we'll make our picks. Microsoft readies next 2 CRM updates, acquires analytics vendor NetBreeze.
NetBreeze. So I had never heard of NetBreeze, got to be honest. I saw this in the Twitterverse somewhere because it made mention of Salesforce and Radiant 6. And it was like, oh, Microsoft, look at what they're doing for CRM. They're purchasing NetBreeze, which apparently is a aggregator much the way Radiant 6 is for listening to social media and social web conversations and interactions. And they're planning on, they being Microsoft, are planning on putting this into their CRM offering. So I guess they announced this at their annual Convergence CRM ERP conference. Awesome. The only reason to be there is because it's held in New Orleans. And this is basically a big marketing push. And they have something called Marketing Pilot, one word. Marketing
Camel
Pilot
case, though. So
Marketing
nice.
Pilot 15.
Nice.
So, this is just again, Salesforce with the vision, sees things, does things. A year and a half later, it's like a validation of a vision, right? When Microsoft sort of follows you and says, ooh, I think we got to get in on that.
Right.
It's sort of a validation of a vision of seeing that social media monitoring is an important part of CRM.
Is it bad that I don't feel like Microsoft is really a player anymore? Like, I feel like
in the CRM space, I'm not sure if they were ever really a player.
What
like
space
a
are they a player now?
The same place where they've been a player on a desktop in a corporate environment.
Their operating system, which is they're taking huge hits, and office productivity, which they've taken a lot of hits too.
Still, but in big organizations, no one's sitting there without PowerPoint on their computer. No one's sitting there without Microsoft Office, Excel, Word, Outlook on their computer.
What product, besides 2 products that have been around for 25 years, what new product has taken hold that Microsoft has done in the last 20 years? You look back and you go, I
don't know. I mean, I look. Think. I don't use Bing, but the commercials make it seem like it could be halfway decent.
Bing it on. Bing it.
Yeah, like the commercials make it seem like it could be halfway decent. I don't know. I'm sure that
there are NCAA bracket on Bing.
See what happens. You might get some crazy dancing bracket, some one-upsmanship. So I'm sure there's more enterprise stuff. SQL Server is not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not the last 20 years, but okay.
But still, you still run into this is back-ended by SQL Server all the time. We know that they have some enterprise stuff that they do with search.
They bought Fast,
right? Not sure what's going on there, but on the consumer side, I mean,
I just feel like they have floundered around for so many years now.
I have not had a Microsoft consumer product in a long time, and I've used Windows 7 because I've had to for certain applications. Windows 8 to me looks really scary. And it's funny because as tabs. A Mac, that like dashboard looking thing, as a Mac user, we've had dashboard for years, like maybe 6-7 years, that dashboard with the gadgets or the widgets, whatever they're called. And they were super cool like 6 or 7 years ago. You'd be like, I got this live updating ESPN Score Center, and I've got a notepad, and I've got a calculator, and I can get to it whenever I want. And like that's what these live tiles remind me of.
Right.
Something that I haven't used that's been on my desktop for years.
They're a little bit different, but
I'm sure they're a little better, but not much.
Well, this is what I'm trying to think. It's like I'm not it's a strange. We're not in the Microsoft business. We're not Microsoft shop.
We're not trying to bash them either. We just don't know.
But I'm just trying to figure out, like, what have they? So if you're a competitor to Microsoft,
what space are you in if you're a competitor?
Yeah, where's your fear of them? Like, what have they done that you look back and they can get into markets and they can make a push because they have money. So that if they get into CRM with Dynamics, you got to pay attention to them. They get into search with Bing, you got to pay attention. They try to take over the tablet market, but Surface sales have been horrible, and they're like so it's like they just. I don't know. I'm almost like just wondering how can they keep fumbling around. They have this cash cow of a couple products, but it just feels like they have not been able to sort of come up with anything new. And buying things like Bing, they bought Bing, and they bought Fast for the search. I think even SQL Server was a purchase originally. It's like is Internet. And we talk about Internet Explorer 11 as like, yeah, you gotta try Internet Explorer. No. So anyway, I just find it interesting because they used to be. Back in the day, it used to be like, jeez.
Or even the mobile, like Windows
mobile phones.
I mean, it looks like they're converging with all the new. I haven't seen it, but the Windows 8 UI,
right? Yeah, the tiles
view. I mean, it looks a lot like a mobile interface,
right?
So it looks like they're trying to bring them together, but knowing Microsoft, I'm sure they don't really talk at all to each other. In
SkyDrive,
yeah, I don't know. You don't hear about you hear about iCloud just because everyone's got the phone, and then they sign up for the iCloud, and it's free, and then this and that. I don't know. I don't really hear about them that much when news pops
Android.
up.
If you're talking about tabloids and phones, it's Android.
Yeah.
If you're talking about browsers, it's right. It's Google. Google's making all the new plays in consumer electronics, in search, in document management, in syncing. Oh, man, I just feel like they're just being left behind, way behind. But anyway, let's go on. Speaking of being left behind, let's go on and
don't leave me behind.
Go on and make your CloudFocus app pick of the week. Make the pick that you
made
last year.
Well, I think I'm going to pick this every year.
At least you don't pick it after, like you picked the Oscar app. That was the worst ever.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to use it before I picked it. This one I used.
I'm going to pick Spring 11.
Because you've done that.
3 years ago.
So this one I used, and I did it last night, and it's kind of funny because I'm going to shout out Missy Longshore at MF Longshore. Said to me, wait, isn't it only Tuesday? Are you in the studio already recording? Because I tweeted from inside of the NCAA March Madness Live application.
Okay.
From NCAA Digital. It is free. I was playing with it on my iPad mini.
Oh, this isn't the CBS one? This is the NCAA one?
This is from the NCAA.
Okay. I think CBS has one too.
So it's really cool. You can watch all the games. You can participate in conversations around the games. You can see scores from all the other games. You can see your bracket. You can see all sorts of fun stuff. And the quality's great. Like last night, this is Wednesday, but yesterday, the first round, I'm sort of air quoting and rolling my eyes at the same time. The first round started with some of those,
right.
Early games where like two number 11 seeds had to play each other to be an 11 seed.
Yeah.
And I was watching, I can't remember what it was. I just sort of turned it on, because it was on my TV in front of me. I just wanted to turn it on the app to see the quality. It was fantastic. It was like HD quality. And all the little extras around it make the experience really cool, like the tweeting, the conversations, the this, that, the other. Make that live. I really feel like this is a big thing. Like, sports are the last thing that I watch live. I don't really watch anything live. And if you can enhance that experience with these tablets by including conversations, including other information or separate highlights or scores from around the league or around whatever, and allowing me to hop over there and watch that game even if it's not my local market, that's the kind of stuff that makes TV watching experience even better. And we talk about a lot about this, like with streaming and stuff, and we're totally into it. We're totally geeky about it. And that's why I picked NCAA March Madness Live. I think it's a great app. If you're at work, you prop your iPad up and, watch the tournament. Productivity, it's like a known fact. Productivity over the next 2 Thursdays and Fridays are like dip. Like there's a big
and the internet takes a big hit.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm in a tournament pool.
Syracuse Thursday night, 9:57.
Do not care. But in 2011, I came in second in my bracket with 104 entries.
That's because you didn't even know anything.
That's right.
Pick teams by numbers and colors.
No, I had a theory. I read up on a theory, but I won some money, so I was happy.
Good for you, jelly beans.
Jelly beans.
Gambling is illegal outside of Las Vegas.
I was in Vegas a month ago, and will be in 2 months. All right, I'm gonna make a strange pick, but I've kind of never used it.
Spring 11.
I'm gonna make Spring 11 pick.
Spring 13. The whole thing.
Because I actually had to do a project with it, and I was comparing it to another product. So, I needed to set up a nonprofit website.
Yep.
And in the nonprofit world, money matters, and so paying for things is a tiny nonprofit. So, I need to set up a nonprofit website, and I went searching for, places to set up websites. And obviously, I have my own technology, but it's like I want to have something that I don't have to maintain if it's me. So I went and looked at Squarespace, and I.
Oh, that was what you compared it to?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to compare it to Plone.
No.
Okay.
Plone is much more powerful. Not even close.
Well, when you are building a website, I would think that your first inclination is to build it in.
But then then it's mine forever, because then no one else can do that, because now the other people, I can't then hand it off to anybody else in the PTA and say you guys go for it.
The user manual.
Yeah, no, I mean. Again, the hosting of it then becomes a thing. And I guess there are free hosting. Whatever. So I went to Squarespace. I actually tried to find if they had nonprofit pricing. They don't. They do not do any nonprofit.
That's not very cool.
Yeah, so I didn't think it was very cool. So I was then setting up the Google account this is for the Parent Teacher Association for the school that my kid goes to. And I was setting up the Google account, and I was like, you know what? I haven't used Sites in a while. Like, I wonder, does Sites, can I even do this in Sites? I know you can publish sites, but can you make them as a website? Can you actually make them work? And lo and behold, with a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of, pushing the edges around, you can take a Google site and turn it into a pretty good regular www.domainname.whatever.com. Works pretty well. I mean, it's not perfect. I got errors. I got whatever while setting it up, and there's a little bit of, you have to know your domain names and how to repoint things and stuff like that.
Know your A name, C name, whatever
and they
stuff.
kind of tell you how to do it a little bit. But for the price, for nonprofit, I set us up for nonprofit Google Edition, which is,
you got 2,000 email addresses to send out,
and you have a lot.
Right? 2,000. Don't you get 2,000 email accounts?
Oh no, you get 10 to start.
I thought you got 2,000 accounts.
That's for a school.
You didn't set it up as a school?
No, I set it as a nonprofit.
Oh, you set it up
it's for education, but you get 10 accounts. You can ask for more,
right?
But you get 10 to start.
Got it. You really need one.
No, I put everybody on it.
Oh, you did.
And so I set up Docs, I set up Drive, and But anyway, so Google Sites, not bad. Like I will say, it's a little bit getting used to, and there's a little bit you edit things here, and you set up the pages here, and you do it. There's 4 different interfaces, and there's templates, and there's kind of gadgets you can add in, but eventually I got up a pretty okay site. I think it's easier for me, or maybe harder, because I know how to set up sites.
I feel like it might have been harder for you than it was.
Some stuff like that.
Some things were probably easier for you because of your since the internet was born background in the internet, but some things were probably hard for you because of your since the internet was born knowledge of the internet. That probably worked for you and against you in certain cases.
And not very customizable. I mean, you have these templates. I guess you could get in and really build your own template, but I felt like the control I had was
no CSS. You can't upload your own.
I think if you
CSS
get into your own
templates,
but then that takes away the sort of whole thing. But, you know, the hosting and the thing... Anyway, it works pretty well. I'm pretty impressed.
How's the SEO on it? Like, if I go search for your school, am I going to find your site?
I'm hoping that Google Sites has a good SEO.
I don't know. Am I going to find your site? Should I look for it?
It's been up for 2 days.
Yo, I would presume it's in there now.
All right, go for it.
I'm looking for it right now.
You have to search for...
I'm Googling it. And that's the website's school.
Yeah, the school usually comes up first.
It is not on the first page. There is this other site that has a link to it that I know about.
That's funny.
But no, I don't know.
I don't think it's been indexed yet.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there's probably no other links to it.
Oh,
so
I have to link to it from somewhere.
Yeah. Anyway, oh no, the PTA, the calendar's up there. Look, sites.google.com. It's up there.
I didn't search for I didn't put.
PTA. Oh, okay. Anyway, it shows
it.
up. Anyway, just want to pick it. That's pretty good. Pretty impressed. You know, give it a shot. If you want to see what the one I'm talking about looks like, I don't care. It's not a big deal. Go to psis78pta.org. So that's the site. And it's hosted on Google Sites. It works pretty well. Again, you know, not absolutely the best thing I've ever used, but pretty good for the price. You know, for free. Considering, you know, Squarespace is about $10 a month. Free is good. And they have some nice integrations with the Google Calendar, so if you're running a calendar, you can then publish things into a public calendar and show up. And there's some nice things.
The name of it is New Website. That's why it's like that's might be why it doesn't.
It's not carrying the name of the title.
Yeah, the name of the name was like New Website.
No good. All right, well that's it for this week. We're gonna do a short one, and then we go for 36 minutes. We'll be back next week with another one. Remember to follow us at JustEdelstein, at Jason M. Atwood, at Arkus Inc., Facebook.com/Arkus Inc. We're on the Twitter. We're on the Google+. We're in the Dreamforce portal. Remember to subscribe in iTunes. Leave a nice review there. We'll be back next week. Until then, as always, enjoy those cloudy days.